Howdy, howdy. Welcome back. It's another Workshop Wednesday. This week, we are doing a What's New edition. This is actually kind of nice because it's the first Wednesday of the month, which happens to be the 1st of September as we are recording this. And we're going to go through the previous month. We're looking back at what happened in August to see all the new features and new updates that are available in platforms like Tag Manager, Analytics, etc. Now, before we go too far into this, welcome. If this is your first Workshop Wednesday, welcome if you are returning and you're already a Workshop Wednesday fan of MeasureMarketing.io. My name is Chris Mercer. I am the co-founder of MeasureMarketing.io. I do go by Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. You should as well. And maybe you found us through the podcasts and talks that we're out there giving. We share portions of our content with other platforms like CXL Institute, Digital Marketer, Measure Summit, Social Media Examiner. Maybe you're already a member over at MeasureMarketing.io. Whether you're a Toolbox member or you are a Academy member, either way, we are happy that you are here. It's our job to help people like you learn how to use all these cool tools. And these update workshops, these What's New workshops are especially important because a lot of times there's an update or a feature that has come through that you should be taking advantage of, but you can't do that if you don't know that it's out there. Now, I want to briefly mention the Academy. That is our flagship training program for if anybody wants to learn it. We've kind of created this learning platform for all things digital measurement, essentially, that we're trying to build out. So that is the Measurement Marketing Academy itself. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. When it comes to this training, just remember one thing, and in particular, because we're going to cover lots of little one things as far as the updates have happened, you want to think about what's the thing that you can actually take action on. Like, oh, you might see something that Data Studio did, and you go, oh, I'm going to take advantage of that. So you can jump in and take that. So that's kind of the concept. One thing, then you practice that, make it a skill, then come back, rewatch this, pick up another new one thing. All right, let's go ahead and get started. What's new? August 2021's new features and new updates. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive right in, and we're going to start like we always do with a quick visit to the Measurement Marketing Framework. Remember, 3 key steps. You plan, you build, and you launch. So here's how today's workshop is actually going to fit into the framework. Of course, we're all marketing in the blind when we first start out. We are trying to get to a point where our marketing is reliably creating revenue and results, right? It's reliably growing our revenue and results. How do we do that? You work in your plan, questions, informations, the actions you're going to take based upon the answers you get. That's your measurement plan in a nutshell. Now, when you're thinking about some of these one things that we go through on the updates that have come out, think about how you might use them for your plan. What I will say is definitely in the build where results are, there's going to be a big deal with GA4 we're going to talk about when it comes to the results and how you measure those. Traffic, not so much, but story, absolutely, with Tag Manager server side coming in. So we're going to have some updates that affect how you might improve those processes. And then your builds will be better. And of course, the launch, like how to actually use your measurement. That's where you listen to the results coming through from your users. We then forecast based upon what our benchmarks are. We know what our near future is going to look like. And ultimately, we optimize against that, right? We measure against our forecast. We see what's working, what's not. That's how we know what to adjust so we can get to this whole predictable point. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to start with Google Analytics 4. Now, remember, if you're not using GA4 yet, you absolutely need to get on the ball. As of this recording, which is September 1st, 2021, I would say you probably have about 6 months left until, it really hits the fan and you got to dive in. So take advantage of the time that you have now to get involved in GA4. It's my first little public service announcement for that. It's not that it's going to be your production platform, but it will in 2022. So make sure you get ahead of it because there's a learning curve. Speaking of learning curves, let's talk about a few of the updates that came through with GA4. Remember, this is also what's all getting the new stuff. The big one, and I'm going to go into, let's go into our acquisition reports here. I'm just going to show kind of the thing that matters, and I'm going to show you kind of where this is, and then we're going to talk about briefly what it is. So when you go into your reports, you have your conversions, right? We all have these, got to make sure I scroll over. GA4 is running a little slow, but that's okay. It's getting a lot of work for us. We have our conversions, these conversions events. Now, GA4, remember, it's the platform of tomorrow. It was built for the world of tomorrow. It was built for a world where we can't measure every single thing that's going on because of, the tech, the users, or laws. So this is good, right? It's built for this. But what does it mean built for this? Well, what it means is it's going to model. It's going to model conversions for you. It's going to say, well, here's what basically it's creating a representation of what it thinks is a useful truth for you. That's what the conversion modeling is going to do. It's built with AI and machine learning at its core, so it can do this. But the update that came out in early August was about how it's going to do that. So here's what I would like everybody to do, because it's important that you understand this, whether it's you're using this or your clients, because I think there's going to be some confusion. So if you go to model conversions and then GA4, let's just do that. So model conversions GA4. Let's see if I can get into the right thing. It is not. Nope. I knew I was going to type in the wrong one for you. Hang on a second. Let me make sure I get the right phrase. I want you to type something else. It's modeled. This is kind of, unfortunately, Google's way of doing it, but we're going to do modeled conversions. That's what we need. Modeled. That's what I'm looking for. Modeled conversions. That's your keyword. Modeled conversions, GA4. Okay. Must have the ED at the end. That pops this up. This is what you're looking for about modeled conversions. The reason this is important is because this is how Google is explaining to the world how Google Analytics 4 is going to treat your conversions. Right now, we're not going to go through this in great detail because it's just kind of an updates workshop. We'll cover this stuff in a future workshop later. But you need to go through here and look at this and think through, like, okay, how is this going to be affecting me? Now, one of those things is this. I think this is huge. So when looking at Google Analytics reports, keep in mind the attributed conversion data for each channel can still be updated for up to 7 days after the initial conversion is recorded. So that means that we're all used to looking in our charts and seeing conversions and being like, cool, that's what the conversions was. But it will change because analytics needs time. It needs time. And that's the issue I think that'll happen with machine learning and AI is generally speaking, most users, now you and I of course are different, but most users don't realize that AI is not instant, that it's being trained. It needs time to actually crunch through these different scenarios and think things through. Google's telling you it's going to take 7 days. So it's entirely possible that this is something that's rolling out for everybody. So it may not be in your setups yet, but it is rolling out, which is why I wanted you to be aware of it, because it's a big deal, especially the 7-day window. Because now, instead of looking at yesterday's conversions and saying, oh, okay, here's what we got, maybe you can't do that anymore. Maybe you got to wait 7 days to really have a useful truth of what your conversions probably were. So just keep that in mind. That's a huge update. I want to make sure that you were very, very aware of that and kind of that exists. And again, the keyword here is modeled conversions. They did not make this easy to find. So you have to type modeled conversions. If you do conversion modeling, it doesn't work as well. All right, next up. So in Google Analytics 4, we can go through and you can set up, actually I'm going to flip to our account so you can see kind of what an owner's level account would look like because we're using the demo store there. So if I go into the measuremarketing.io production account, it's going to light up a few things for me. So I'm going to go into configure. And in our configure, as I give that a second to catch up, we're going to need to go into custom definitions, which is the custom dimensions, custom metrics, that sort of stuff. Now we have, you got quotas, right? So you only have up to 25 user scopes. You got the 50 event scopes that you can do. You got 50 custom metrics. And so this is a great way to keep that in mind. That's not the update. The update is what happens when you archive one of these. So they went through, you can actually make room because sometimes you need something, but you don't need it anymore. And they just went through and they explained a little bit more about how the archiving works for that. So essentially the kind of the short story of this is when you archive something is any list that was built, maybe you built a remarketing list or something like that with these dimensions or metrics, any list that was already built that has data keeps the data, but obviously it's not going to continue going forward. But you got to think about any explorations you've created, any segments in those explorations you've created, that sort of stuff might be affected by that. So just a little FYI, you can archive, and they've done a little bit of updates letting you know, okay, hey, if you archive, that's fine. Just realize obviously your segments won't apply anymore if you're using them in segments, things like that. But anything that's already an audience that's built will keep its audience, but it just won't accumulate more, which again, if you think about it, kind of makes sense. So it's good that they clarified that. Next thing is under explorations. We're going to go into an explorations report here. I'm just going to bring up some generic ones. Now, I won't have this issue, I don't believe, for a while, and probably you won't either. But right up here, you will actually see a little percentage mark sometimes that shows up. This is, in fact, let me get to a real, I think I've got a report that we can show. It's got some data back here, so we can see this actually light up. So this, there you go. So this is a green check mark means 100%. Sometimes you'll see a percentage or a little yellow in it, and it's basically telling you it's sampled. Now, this is specific, very specific to Google Analytics 360 customers, which is the expensive one. That's the one that's $150,000 a year. But if you're a 360 customer, you can actually request unsampled data. So it'll sample it when you do your initial exploration. Then you'll have an option here that would actually say, okay, request unsampled. It takes up to 30 minutes, and then they will produce the report with unsampled data. So it still takes a little bit of time, but it's available. So for those that out there that want it, again, I think most of us probably won't have that issue. It's a lot of data, and GA4 is a little more open, I think, than Universal Analytics was, built to handle a little more before it started sampling. But pay attention to that little widget, because this is how you're going to know if things are sampled or not. So again, the only real update is that GA360 customers, it's a paid level at that point, but you can request unsampled, but you got to pay for GA, which again is pretty pricey and out of reach of most of people probably watching this. However, just want to make sure that you knew that it was available as well. All right, next up, let's talk about Tag Manager. Now, Tag Manager in the web side of things, this actually wasn't released in their updates. I think it should have been. But one thing was noticed here that they did add this to our tags, right? So the send to server container, obviously this is for server side. Now in GTM server side, what you had to do in the past is you would come in this fields to set and you would set it up and you put in all the details that you need and the properties, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do that anymore because you click send to server and that pops in the server URL. That's where you put all of this. So if you're using server side, there is now an easier way to use server side. You just pop this in and you have that in there. If you need Facebook IDs and things like that, you still want to use the fields to set, user properties, etc., advanced settings to push that stuff through. But for the server container, you no longer have to identify that separately. There is an actual place for that now. So just a little mental note there, especially if you've been using server side already. If you're just starting out, it's even better because now you know there's a simple little box here you can now check, which wasn't the case in June. So that they came out with early August, sort of the latter part of July, but they never told anybody about it. It just sort of happened. So we wanted to point that out for you. So if you're using server side, it's much easier to do that. And the other thing of note when it comes to Tag Manager right now, the only other thing is that there is a ability to cross-domain server side now, which I don't really have that because we use the same server side container for everything. So there is no cross-domain that we have to worry about. But if you have two different servers that you're trying to cross domains on, two different measurement servers you set up, you can now do that. So just a little mental note for those that are doing. I think it's a lot more complicated of a setup. Probably not what you're working on right now when it comes to server side. They're probably fairly basic setups, those that are playing with that. So just a mental note that you can now do that. So you can actually cross domain different measurement servers as well, which is really nice if you happen to have different domains that you are working through. Next up, and this is back where Team Data Studio is for the win. They're the ones that have come up with the most updates, the most changes. So one thing I think is kind of a fun one. So they have this gauge. This is a gauge that's existed for a while. It was one of the original community visualizations that are back here. What they have now done is they've added a built-in gauge, which is different. So if you come down here, you see gauge right here. And you have two different, styles of the gauge. Essentially, it's the same thing though. So you can see that it actually pops in a completely different gauge. So if you like this style gauge, great, right? You have that and you can obviously style it however, or you can do this style gauge where there's like a little progress meter coming up. So just know that there is a new chart available. It's technically in the charts section. And it's the first time they've done a new chart in a while because Tree Maps came out, almost a year and a half or 2 years ago. It's been a while since they've updated a new chart, but they've done it built in, which is pretty cool. I would also say, side note, always check community visualizations and check out what's back here because there's the community building stuff that's back here. And so what was here one day, you might say, oh, well, some of the stuff's cool, but then you come back and you check it again, you see even more stuff back there. Go like, oh, that card view, maybe I can use that. There's some, autoplay stuff, like just some pretty cool stuff that you might be able to use to play around with. So just be aware of that. Not quite an update. It's always back there, but I want to make sure you know about it since you're back here. Next up, there are new reporting templates as well. So if I go back to Data Studio, I'm going to go back to our sort of home stage, our home screen here in Data Studio. You can click where it says templates. It'll take you to the gallery. And this is your template gallery. So there are new templates that have come out. So now you've got BigQuery stuff coming through, right? We've got Google Sheets, YouTube Analytics, YouTube Ads, Search Console, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can take a look at those as well, especially these BigQuery ones. Those are sort of the newer ones. But it's always a good idea to say, hey, what other people are doing? Again, I am never a fan of taking somebody else's template, copying it, and then putting in your numbers. Because I think that template was built to answer their questions, not necessarily your questions. But I do like using templates for inspiration to say, oh, how did they do that? Oh, I didn't know you could measure for something like that. Oh, that gives me an idea to do this. That's how you use templates. So come back here and look at these, especially the BigQuery stuff, because that is going to be increasingly more important, I think, as a platform in 2022, probably 2023. A lot of users will start going into BigQuery because they're going to have to. So just a little FYI there. All right. Next up, when it comes to Data Studio, is they did a lot of text functions. Now, I'm just going to Google for some of this to show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to do Data Studio functions. Functions, if I could spell that, there you go. And then you come to this functions list. So there are these text ones. So let me see if I can go to text. And what they did is they made these up. So a lot of these are new. These weren't back, and not all of these were back here. So like contains text is new. Ends with is new. Let's see, left text is new. Right text is new. I think regex contains is new. So there's a lot of different ones that were back here. I think they have a starts with as well. So if the text starts with this. So this kind of goes back to, when you're creating your functions in Data Studio, for those that are doing that, you can say if this dimension starts with this, then do that, right? That sort of stuff is how you can sort of logically play with these. So it's a pretty cool feature that they have. They're expanding their functions. Think about this like in a spreadsheet, you have functions, right? The kind of formulas you type in the bar with a spreadsheet, same basic idea, but with Data Studio. And you can have these functions where Data Studio is doing some pretty cool stuff. So wanted you to be aware of that as well. And that was a big update where they came through there. So wanted to make sure that you knew about that as well. So the new updated functions for Data Studio, for those that are using functions, I think that could be probably pretty useful. And with that, we bring it to a close. See, we keep it quick and easy on today's What's New. So we've went through all of the different changes. What was your one thing? I think for me, it was... oddly enough, it was the GTM thing, certainly, that in the web version, you can now enter in your URL as a place to put in the server-side URL. I think that's super important for anybody doing server-side. So much easier than creating a field to set and manually doing it and sort of overriding stuff. You don't have to do that anymore. It's built in, and it definitely shows how everybody's kind of, Google especially is really making it easier and easier to get into server-side tag manager for those where it makes sense. Remember, that is kind of a paid thing at that point, but it might make sense for you as well. So take a look at that. My second thing was the gauge on Data Studio because I just like different visualizations. I think that was a cool one. So the new gauge that they built in, and the fact that they're continuing to add to charts, I wouldn't have thought they were going to do that. I would have thought they would have put it in community visualizations, but clearly they think that's a pretty powerful one. So play around with the thing that you think is the most important thing. Build that as a skill. Get some experience with it. Come back, rewatch the workshop, pick up another new skill, another new thing, and that is how you learn this stuff without getting overwhelmed and frustrated as you do. Now, next week's workshop, we are switching our edition. So remember, we switch every week to a different sort of edition. This week, the first Wednesday is always a What's New. Then we follow that with a Getting Started. It's for beginners. So getting started, we're going to talk about using the advertising reports in GA4. So there's an entire section of reports called advertising. We're going to go through those and help you just kind of get some basic understanding of how to use those so that you can use them for yourself or for your clients or both, if it happens to be that way. If you want to make sure you get that workshop, please be sure to subscribe. We are almost at 2,500 subscribers. So thank you all for the very kind comments. I am reading them. I'm unfortunately not able to respond to every single one of them. I'm doing my best to get updated on that. But thank you. It is amazing to see the feedback and the kind words that everybody's sending through, and the people that are sharing this with other people. We've seen that on sharing the YouTube stuff on Twitter and Facebook and everything else. So thank you for that. LinkedIn's been another big one people sharing on. So if you find this one helpful or any of our workshops helpful, please thank you for sharing and appreciate that. Looking forward to getting that 2,500 as we go through. The other way that you can get these workshops, of course, is by becoming what we call a Toolbox member, the Measurement Marketing Toolbox membership. It is completely free. So you get access to all of the most current workshop, I should say, because obviously the rest of them are on YouTube, but you get the most current workshop that's there just for convenience. More importantly, it's all of the tools. So if you ever see me talk about a certain tool that I'm using in a workshop, that is free for you. You can use that tool. You just got to become a Toolbox member. So we have the traffic tracking toolkit. There's a dashboard planner out there. There's an split test optimization planner out there. There's lots of stuff. There's ones on how to forecast and predict revenue. There's lots of cool things that are back there in the Toolbox, completely free, much more than what's here. There's like 40 tools back there. So those are all yours for free. Measure.tips/WW, just a name and email. It'll create your account, and then it'll send you the login. You log in, you'll see access to it. In fact, I'll show you that section in just a second. So that's it if you want the free membership, measure.tips/WW. Otherwise, remember I mentioned the Academy earlier. This is our flagship learning platform. This is here to help you understand how to get through this how to get through the framework and go through the better, how to improve your plan, how to improve your builds, how to improve your launches and get more juice from the squeeze, right? Get more from your measurement systems. Make sure they're really useful. Getting to the point where instead of just randomly guessing at what needs to happen to move things forward, you know what you need to do to move things forward. You know what actions you should take, and you know what results you're more than likely going to get from those actions. That's the beauty of measurement. It makes marketing so much simpler when you understand how to measure. And that is what the Measurement Marketing Academy is all about. So I'm going to go through a very quick tour just so you can kind of see what that looks like for those that have not seen it yet. When you first come in, you see the dashboard. You got access to these 6 blocks that are here. You've got the win courses, which are the traditional courses. I'll show you those in a moment. You've got the on-demand workshops, which are for a particular topic or an update where it's not big enough for a course, but we needed to make sure people were aware of it. We'll create workshops for it. And we have the Toolbox, where the resources. And then, of course, we have support. Winner Circle is where you can get support from your peers, and Ask an Instructor Support is the most popular thing that is back in the Academy, is kind of why we exist. And this is to get help directly from instructors, because I think that's the thing that's hard is, you can watch a million YouTube videos, but it's tough when you can't get answers to specific questions. That's what the Ask an Instructor Support is. It is direct access to instructors that can help you get unstuck and on the way. So I'll show you all of these look like as we go through the Win courses themselves. We organize them by date. You can see here we just updated Win Google Analytics 4 basics coming through here in August. So that was just recently updated. Probably go through another update in 6 months, I'm sure, as they continue to evolve that platform. We did Win server side in June, right? So we had that most recently. But we do this because a lot of Academy members, they're with us for a while. I mean, this is one of those learning platforms. It's not something you join for a month and then leave, but it is something that people will sort of stick around with, because again, the whole concept is we're here to support and help you move through the framework over and over again at whatever level you're at. But the idea is that sometimes people will not take a course for a month or two, practice other stuff using Ask Instructor Support or asking questions to the community. Then they want to quickly see, okay, what courses were updated, or what were the new ones by date. That's why we do this. But of course, we have them organized by topic, Google Analytics stuff coming through. We've got Tag Manager stuff coming through all the way to, again, that server side concept. And we've got dashboards and reporting where your data studio stuff is, as well as some other platforms like Sheets and, how to track funnels, how to think about traffic attribution, that sort of stuff. And then strategy. And this is where I think a lot of other, if there's a course out there, there's a lot of people that will teach Google Analytics or Tag Manager, and they're all great. They're incredible instructors. What we try to focus on is, yes, we want to teach you the tactical stuff like that, like which button to check and how to set up a goal or whatever the thing is. But it's really the strategy that is the secret sauce to measurement. You have to understand how to think measurement. You have to understand how to get a measurement culture in your organization. And when you understand measurement, this world becomes so much easier. And so there's a lot of strategy back here in terms of how to think about things, how to optimize, and how to actually forecast revenue and results. Optimizing is way beyond split testing. It's a whole other thought process back there. So we have the strategy courses as well. So all of those are included. They are unlimited. You get access to everything, all the updates, everything. So you'd have that. The other thing you have is the workshops. Of course, this is the one we're currently watching, so you'd always have access to this. But Academy members have all of these unlocked. So what's the difference between this and the YouTube channel? These, to be fair, these are all on YouTube as well. The difference is the YouTube ones have stuff like this in them, where these, because they're for members, all this sort of stuff is taken out. The Academy tours are all taken out. They're edited down. They are what we call student editions. And their zoom effects and things like that are put in there to make them a little easier to watch and easier to get through. But they're here for reference, because that's what 9 times out of 10 you need. You need a reference for something. So sometimes people come back here and say, I just want to get caught up in the last 3 months of whatever the changes were. They can quickly do that. Or I want to go through some getting started topics and just sort of, see if I want to get caught up and, maybe learn something new about, UTMs or visualizations or whatever. Beyond basics, the little more advanced stuff, and of course, strategy sessions, right? How to think about it. The other big thing on this is that it's searchable. So you can go through, type whatever you're looking for, database spits out. Here are the workshops that relate to that topic, as well as the courses, right? The different lessons in the Win courses that have that as well. So you have that. And then finally, when it comes to content, is the Toolbox. Now remember, for those of you interested in the free membership, this is the stuff that's free. We give this out. This part gets out to everybody. So you have all of that. The Power Planner is all about forecasting stuff. The Analytics Report Card, the audit, GA audit. There's all sorts of cool things back here. As we create new tools, we add them back here. So you'll have access to that. The difference is with Academy members, you have unlocked sections like these Get It Done guides, where you can come through and this is kind of like little craft kits that we'll build. Like, now that you know Tag Manager and Analytics and Data Studio, here's some cool stuff to do with it. And so in this case, it was building an Eyes on the Journey report, which is kind of what we are very quickly becoming even more famous for day after day, measuring the conversation it's sort of having on a page. And is it the conversation we want to have? And if not, what do you do with it? Eyes on the Journey tells you that. So we talk about that. It's got a nice little setup, video, templates, everything else. Again, that's exclusive to Academy members, so that you have those as well. And then finally, I mentioned the Ask an Instructor support. There is the community, by the way, so you can always go back in the community, kind of a standard, community format. But the Ask an Instructor support is kind of our claim to fame. Not kind of, it is our claim to fame. It is the number one most popular feature. You come back here as an Academy member, you can pop in your question, details of your question, screenshots, right? Any of that sort of stuff. Videos are very, very helpful. So send us little links to your video, kind of giving us an over-the-shoulder view. In fact, that's how I like our members thinking about it, where it's kind of like, hey, if you could call me over or an instructor over, somebody who knew this stuff and did this every day and said, I'm trying to get this goal to work, this conversion event to work, or I'm trying to figure out how to build a remarketing audience, or I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to even measure this customer journey. Here's what the journey looks like. What would you do how would you even set up milestones? Like what's the strategy that you would follow here? Anything related to measurement, strategy, or tactics, it doesn't matter. Our instructors can help you out with this because that is what we are here for. So you can pop in those, explain everything. 9 times out of 10, they're sending you back a video and screenshot as well. So you can get unstuck and on the way. And we both know, because we're watching video now, how powerful video is. It's so much nicer than having a million back and forth text messages as to try to help people out. It's just show us on the video, we show you on a video, and it's easy. And the whole concept is they'll teach you as you go. In fact, one of the most popular questions, if you become an Academy member, the first thing I would ask that you do is come into Ask Instructor Support, introduce yourself, and say, here's my funnel. Like, show us your website, your journey, what you have currently set up. Give us a little tour of your current setup. And then ask, what would you do with all the stuff that's in the Academy? Because there's a lot. It is a just-in-time learning platform. There's a lot of stuff back there. We have more content than you could ever watch, I promise. And we create new content all the time. There's new courses every month, new workshops every week. So ask them, ask the instructors, what would you do? What was the next thing that now you see what my setup is, and they'll build a curriculum for you. They'll help guide you along the way. Another popular thing that we've get asked. So Ask Instructor Support is back there as well. So all of those, just kind of recap this stuff quickly. The big 4, I think, are courses, the Ask Instructor Support, the on-demand workshops, and obviously the Winner Circle community stuff. So the courses themselves, you get access to everything, all the updates. You have the Ask Instructor Support. That's, unlimited questions. I don't care if you ask 27 questions a day. We love that. The more questions you ask, the better, because it shows that you're using and practicing. And that's what our job is. Our job is to make sure that we support you at every step that you need it. On-demand workshop library, of course, is there. And then the Winner Circle community. All told, it's about over $8,500 in value. It's probably a little higher than that at this point now, but at least over $8,500. And even if you cut that in half and said, well, I don't believe $8,500, but maybe $4,000, maybe $2,000, maybe $1,000, it's still a lot that you get access to in training and support every single month that you're an Academy member. But of course, it is not $8,500 a month or $4,000 or $1,000 a month, at least not yet. So we do, at this point, if you're interested and it makes sense, go take a look. Join the Measurement Marketing Academy. You go to measure.tips/Get Academy. It will take you directly to that page. Again, measure.tips/Get Academy. And you'll see all the basic stuff that's there. It'll recap some of what we talked about, and you can see the current options that are available for you. And hopefully we look forward to seeing you in the Academy soon. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. This has been What's New, August 2021. New features, new updates. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we'll see you on the next one.